Thank you.
Okay, I know how to do that. There is a librarian. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, I have to stop the camera.
Yeah. And then, of course, Janet.
I want to welcome everybody. We're going to get started. There's still some people joining us on Zoom, as well as I'm sure there's a lot of people might be coming in late because of trying to find the building. So this class, I'm Paula Reynolds. I'm the president for Wild Ones this year. Condolences accepted. And we are promoting environmentally sound landscaping practice. We're trying to educate and foster the establishment of native plant communities. We offer a variety of programs, the Wild Ones does, plant swaps, which are members only, wildflower walks, garden tours, and special events, and many programs as this one is Zoom and in person. So we don't have a lot of meetings like Master Gardener has a monthly meeting. We don't have that, but we pretty much have a monthly event. So we did recently post on the Wild Ones Appalachian Highland website. There's a list of native plants, a species list for native plants for this area. And even if you're not a member, you can go to that website and you would be able to see that under the category of tools. I believe it's under tools. And then we're going to take on the project, the Wild Ones members, of visiting local nurseries and trying to get them on board with selling native plants. So anyone who's not in the Wild Ones currently, please think about joining us. Our program tonight is going to be Lori Young. She's the Southwest Regional Steward. I'm making sure I get this right. Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation. She's going to be sharing information about her work at the Cedars Natural Area Preserve in Southwest Virginia and Lee County. And the primary focus tonight is going to be about restoration of Rivercane. So welcome, Laura, and thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here to share a lot of the work that we do on the Natural Area Preserve. And I think I've tried to make this sort of scalable to either projects that you can be involved in or things that you can take back to your little slice of the earth. And I know that the native plant movement is amazing. And I love that people are getting a lot of native species. They're putting it in their gardens. We're planting lots more natives. And I kind of want to challenge you to the next step where we look at what is supposed to be there and how do we encourage that natural system in that specific place. And so I hope this gives you like some new ideas to think about on top of all the wonderful things that you're already doing. So I'll start a little bit. Oh gosh, I can't make the clicker work then.
Right outside.
Ha!
You got it.
All right, so I'll start a little bit to talk about the Natural Heritage Program, which I work for. So I work for DCR. It's the same division as state parks, but we manage natural area preserves across the state. So we've got 66 different preserves, and we focus mainly on picking areas and conserving them for threatened and endangered species and excellent habitats for those over recreation as our primary goal. And so I work in the Southwest region. The yellow block there, we cover Lee to Grayson, and I spend most of my time out in the very end of the state. At Natural Heritage, we protect threatened and endangered species through inventory. So we go out, we have a team of ologists, zoologists, biologists, all kinds of ologists that go out and find the rare species that we track in our program, so that we can locate where they want to live and where they're currently living, as well as finding really high quality habitat for those organisms and plant communities, as well as like karst and everything else in the natural world that we want to protect. Then we protect those spaces with our protection division, either by purchasing that land and deeding it as part of the preserve, or working with private landowners through conservation easements, or just talking to people that want a little bit more information on how they should be managing resources that are really special. And finally, we do stewardship of those areas that we've located. So that's really primarily where I spend my time. And that's just taking care of the habitats that we have inherited and making sure that everything is suitable for those species that we're trying to protect. So again, the Cedars Natural Area Preserve is in Lee County. I call it the California of Virginia. It's the very end of the state. People think Virginia ends at Blacksburg. There's actually 4 more hours of driving to get to the end of the state. The Cedars is colloquial, it's basically determined by this 35,000 acre boundary that is defined by the underlying geology. So we have a lot of limestone out there, a lot of limestone dolomite barrens. Limestone is a highly dissolvable rock. So that means when water washes over it, like 90, +% of it dissolves into nothing. So there's not very much parent material left to make soil. So there's not a lot of soil out there. So it's kind of a difficult place to live. And whenever somewhere is difficult to live, you get really cool, rare, specialized things with lots of charisma that are working hard to make it. So again, you can see here, we've got 11 plus terrestrial animal species, 19 plus rare plants, over 50 aquatic and karst species. This is about 2% of all the threatened and endangered species in Virginia, and significantly less than 2% of the land mass of Virginia. So you can see the concentration of rare species that is in this area. This is some of the karst landscape, which is a little different than some people experience. This is pretty common in the area that I work in, and you can see how this is kind of a specialized place to live if you're a plant, animal, or other kind of critter. I love to show the biodiversity hotspots map. If you're not from this area, or sometimes even if you are from this area, people can understand, oh, Hawaii, it's got all these cool rainforests and neat things, and Sierra Nevadas. Oh, in Southwest Virginia is like a bullseye hotspot of biodiversity. Our rivers, our salamanders, our plants, like we have so much amazing stuff in this area. It's such a special place. And we really need to spend some time to take care of that and realize what we have here. We protect 3 rare natural communities in the Cedars, and I'll show you some pictures of these just to get you kind of thinking about looking at groups of plants, and we're looking at different places and what should be here as a community assemblage. So we have biologists that go out, community ecologists actually that come out and zone these different communities. So this is a dry music calcareous forest, mostly mixed hardwoods, just noticing that there is an understory under the forest. Always great. Again, another unique forest type. You can see all the above ground karst that you don't see everywhere. Another picture of that. Lots of rocks. And then we also have a lot of limestone dolomite barrens. So you can see that this is really edaphically maintained. So we have really little soil. It's very dry. It's hard for trees to get established. It's hard for plants to get established. So you end up with a lot of bare rock and almost like succulent-like desert plants that are living in these communities. Here's one that's a little bit grassier. We have a lot of rare butterflies that come through these. Again, these are sort of the native prairie remnants. When you think of the prairies, you think out west. We also have native prairie in Southwest Virginia. I know you all are aware of this. It's wonderful. These are our little remnants that we still have that show us that that was supposed to be here. So since this is a plant central group, I figured I would go through just some of the really cool plant species that we have in the Cedars. 1, because they're awesome, and 2, to entice you all to come out and visit us one of these days. So I'll show you all some pictures of just some of the things that we track out there that are considered either threatened or endangered on our program. This is pink thoroughwort, Fleishmania. You usually find it along the edges of forests. It needs a little bit more shade, but it's a really great understory plant if you have a canopy. This is Canada bluets, Houstonia canadensis. This is found in most of our rocky, you can see this one's basically growing on a solid rock. It doesn't need very much soil. These are pretty rare. There's some lookalikes. There's a common species of Houstonia that looks very close to this. But this one has the rosettes at the bottom, and it's only in a couple of counties in Southwest Virginia. So this is one that we manage for in our barrens. There's it in flower. It's super cute. We have white blue-eyed grass, Cicerynchium. This is another one that has a common species of Cicerynchium that looks very similar to it. But this one is fairly uncommon. Again, this is only known in 3 counties in Southwest Virginia. Catspy's false bindweed. I have recently found a couple more populations of this, but I would still say I only see this in less than 5 sites in the Cedars. So again, it's a really neat plant to keep your eye out for. Minuart pitcher stitchwort. This is one that's come back up to the watch list, which is really cool, but I just wanted to show you another picture of kind of the specialized plants that we're looking at that are living in these really rocky open environments. In more of our woodland areas, this is mullen foxglove. Deer love to eat it. It is apparently very delicious. This is the Cedars is the only site in Virginia where this plant is found, and the deer are aware of it. As far as there's different communities that we look for these different plants in. So most of what I just showed you, we find in these drier environments that were probably maintained either by drought or fire. Starting with the Camassia, the wild hyacinth is really going to be found in more mesic forests. And so to start to think about these indicator species as what type of space they represent, you know, if you find Camassia, it probably wasn't a dry open prairie. This only exists in places that should be mesic forests. So trying to find these little remnants of rare native species where they're located kind of draws us a map about what would have existed here 300 years ago before, or more, before humans came in and screwed everything up. So kind of like typing these different plants for what they indicate is a really great way that we start to sort of paint the picture of what is natural. And then the celandine poppy is another one that's in the mesic forest, again, like 3 sites in the Cedars, like in the whole state of Virginia. This is in the rich coves. You'll find it under a canopy in mesic forest. Some of our really cool plants, Pachyra millefolium. Again, you try to get someone to care about stuff and you name it Yarleaf ragwort. This is on most of our barrens and woodlands. Again, this is only in Lee and Scott counties, and there is some genetics work that's going on with a leaf moth that is co-evolving that mines the leaves with this species, and they're doing some work in North Carolina on that, and but there's a potential that this is actually its own species, which would mean the Cedars is the only site in the entire world for this plant. You can see how dissected the leaves are. You probably all see Pachyra and the power lines, you know, everywhere, anonymous all over the place. But millefolium is kind of its own thing. Northern rattlesnake master is a very cool plant that we have in the Cedars. Rhynchium yuccifolium. This is a plant that has a really long history for a lot of different reasons. I think one of the coolest things is this picture on the left or right, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong screen, is the oldest shoe ever found in the world is made from this plant. The leaves have a really important value as a textile. There's a lot of people who study Native American usage from a long time ago that they probably carried this plant with them in their own gardens. And there's a likelihood that the patch that we have in the Cedars is potentially from that, which is really cool that a plant has a lot of significance for pollinators, for native plants, and for cultural and historical value. So this is a really exciting one that you'll get to see throughout here. Yes?
Do you know how old that shoe is?
Gosh, I would have to look it up to figure it out. I apologize. We'll follow up. Then we really have our flagship species, I think, running glade clover, Trifolium calcaricum. So you're like, oh, it looks like the white clover that grows in my yard, right? Except this one runs. It's got, you notice it doesn't have the white chevrons on the leaves. It kind of has a larger, more delicate flower. This is globally and state rare. So this only exists in 2 places in the entire world, the Cedars and some barrens in the middle of Tennessee, and that's it. So this is kind of like what gets me out of bed in the morning. You're like, well, if there's no habitat for this clover, this is the only place that exists in the entire world. If you screw it up, you can't put it back. So, you know, that's kind of awesome that we have the privilege to protect species that are this rare. You can see that it runs with stolons, above ground roots. So that's another way that you can really tell it's different than your yard clover, but it's a really stellar species, and we've got it all over the Cedars. It really likes that area. We also have a ton of rare fauna in the Cedars. The wonderful thing about management is usually when you manage for plants, you're also positively managing for animals, for hydrology, for caves. Like using beneficial management strategies is really benefiting all kinds of things. But we have the loggerhead shrike as a bird that lives out there that's fairly rare. The Lee County cave isopod, all of the bats that are federally listed. We have so many rare mussels. It's insane. Here is a picture of our isopod, it has our name on it. It used to be, well, I think it is still federally and state listed endangered. It is doing so well, they are considering moving it to the watch list, which is amazing news. But again, just another level, literally underground, of why the Cedars is such a unique place. And again, Just to mention our river systems, you all know Clinch and the Powell are in the top 5 most biodiverse rivers in the world, not in North America, in the world. Every time we do mussel surveys, they tell us that we have physically touched more species than exist in Europe. It's pretty insane that we have so many resources like that. So we focus especially on preserving river frontage and making sure that we have vegetative communities. We're doing everything we can to protect those river spaces. So we buy everything, let's leave it alone, let the world go back to natural, right? What we already intervened and we screwed everything up, we should just leave it alone. How did that work out for us? Like, I think we're all pretty aware that that is not the best plan. To have a slightly less exaggerated version, here is a picture from the preserve. So this most likely based on some of the indicator species that I showed you that would be in dry, open spaces. This would have been an open prairie glade, but you can see that there's almost no understory. It's really super grown up in all kinds of stuff. And this is what happens when we leave it alone. Here's another picture that's right next to some of the best quality grassy glades that we have in the Cedars. This is right next to it. But there's no way that this can just magically become that without our intervention. Same with this beautiful stand of autumn olive I have in progress. And then here we go. These are native species, right? Cedars, good. Yes, more native species is always better, right? I love showing this as an example of, yes, this is a native species, but it's not existing at its native density that it should be growing in because of the disturbance regime that it would be feeling. So if we had landscape level fire that would have natively been on this area, this many cedar trees would never have made it to this stage. It would have taken them out, thinned them, and we would have had an understory. Because you can see right here, nothing can use that. Like there is nothing for insects, I mean, probably even deer don't like being under there. So, it's just an example that, just native species sometimes is not the answer. So we use a lot of different disturbance management techniques, and I want to share some of these with you based on what we do and also what you can do in your own little spaces. So we do a lot of prescribed fire. I just want to emphasize that fire is native. Appalachia had regular fire long before we ever got here. Every lightning strike that came down would have started something. It would have been creeping along the landscape. It would have burned what should have burned. It would have left what should have burned there. And Native Americans have been culturally burning for as long, like, not even gonna put a date on it, since way before we counted time. They were very aware of the benefits of cultural fire and were using it to improve the land, and they could see the benefits of fire. So it was here long before we got here and took it off the landscape. I want to talk about some of the benefits of fire, reasons that we burn. So fire reduces some unwanted invasive species, and I will clarify that there are some that it fertilizes, but there are plenty that it gets rid of. So things like multifloral rose and Japanese honeysuckle are very intolerant to fire. So if you are burning those invasive species, you can burn them once, maybe twice, and get rid of them. And for me, like if I can burn something instead of using chemicals, I'm always going to do that, put a native process back on the ground and use that. So if you're identifying the invasives that you're trying to treat, this is a method that you can use. It also removes diseases, soil pathogens, molds. You see people have been burning their gardens forever, right? You burn all the bad stuff out. It's really a great way to sterilize those kinds of things. It also recycles nitrogen. We're basically fertilizing every time we burn. So if you look at the chemical composition of fire, it's actually rapid decomposition. So you think about a leaf. You're looking at your leaf. A plant cannot suck that leaf up through its roots, right? It's not plant available. But if we burn it up and then it rains and it takes that carbon into the ground, it's now plant available. So that nitrogen is available to the plants at a more rapid rate than if we had to wait for it to decompose. And as you've seen in some areas that haven't experienced fire in a long time, sometimes those leaves can stack up so deeply that, decomposition is never going to keep up with that. So it's a really great way for us to fertilize the areas that we're burning. It also reduces fuels on the surface. So, wildfire is a thing. It's a thing on the East Coast and the West Coast. So if you have no fire anywhere ever, all your leaves and trees and sticks fall on the ground, and the next year all your leaves and trees and sticks fall on the ground, and the next year, and all of a sudden, 20 years later, you're looking at fuels up to here. Whereas if you burned every 2 years and you burned in fuel beds that were, this low, you would have much lower intensity fire versus letting it stack up for 20 years and then having a catastrophic burn come through. So that's another reason that we burn. Fire also stimulates some seeds or plants. We've seen some of these rare plants that I've shown you that have not made an appearance until they were burned. You needed to either peel that duff layer back off so that they could get sunlight, or there are some seeds that are designed to be really tough that they actually need to be burned to open. So it's really beneficial there. And fire is just like a beautiful management tool to achieve your objectives. So I'm assuming most of you are fairly familiar with how succession works. You have a disturbance, things like grasses come in, species that don't take a very long time to establish. If you leave it alone for a couple more years, about 5 years, you start to see woody shrubs coming in. You leave it alone a little bit longer, you start to see saplings and trees. So if we want to keep something in a specific range, let's say you want a grassland, you can use fire on a 1 to 3 year disturbance interval to keep it in that state. If you want to see just shrubs, you can use fire on a 5 to 6 year interval to keep shrubs in there. So it's kind of a beautiful tool for putting what you want on the landscape. Just to show you some pictures, this is one of the fields that we use prescribed fire in. Oh my gosh, it's a black wasteland. Nothing will ever come back. It's terrible. This is right after the burn. This is 2 weeks later. Everything's okay. And this is that following summer. And so this is a field, this actually used to be a bowling alley. So it's pretty awesome that we were able to demo all of those things. This was actually drilled with native seed because it was probably 100% fescue. So this now has all kinds of yellow prairie grass, big blue stem, little blue stem, goldenrod, all kinds of things. There's butterflies everywhere. This is an amazing space. And just to sort of put some labels as we're going through this talk on how we're looking at different communities, I would put this in like the native prairie meadow pollinator field category. So this is where we're looking at using disturbance every 1 to 3 years. And that doesn't mean fire. That can mean running your lawnmower over it every 2 years so that it is experiencing grazing or some sort of disturbance. Like this is something that is simulatable there. And I will also say that I burn hundreds to thousands of acres with helicopters and fire trucks and everything. And I also burn 40 square feet at my house with a rake and a lighter. Like it is absolutely scalable to be used in all kinds of different spaces. And everyone who knows me knows I can talk about fire for like 3 hours. So I'm just planting that seed. If you want to learn more about prescribed fire and how awesome it is, come see me. Sometimes fire is not enough. So I absolutely love this picture. You can see under A, even if we burned that, it doesn't matter how many times we burned it, there's no light getting to the forest floor. So there is no way for seeds to sprout, for stuff to happen. So this was actually mulched, which means they took like a skid steer with a big grinding head on it, ground all of the trees and put them on the ground. So we're not removing any nitrogen from the system. We're just eliminating some of the canopy so that the sunlight can reach the ground. And then this was burned 3 times. And is that not magnificent? How different that is? And that's not planting anything. That's just using restoration ecology techniques to bring back what was supposed to be there. Here's another example that I think is really scalable. So this picture was taken in April in the preserve. In April, there's usually all kinds of stuff growing, right? You would see stuff on the ground, your grasses are up, your forbs are up. So this entire area, you can see the little cedar trees in the back. This was completely covered with those cedar trees. So this is right after we removed those trees in April. So there was nothing growing on the ground in there. We just opened up that canopy. 2 months later, this is what it looked like. And there are now 6 rare plants that we track that are growing in that space. Again, nothing planted. All we did was get a little bit more sunlight to the ground so that herbaceous layer could really take off. Just to show you some larger scale efforts, again, that 2015 picture, nothing wants to live there, right? There were a couple little blips that were getting sunlight where you could see a couple of those species we were talking about to say, hey, this was probably open. We should open it up and see what happens. With a little bit of hand removal in 2017, you could already see the response to that understory. Again, this is a picture of a forestry mulcher coming through. This is what it looks like after you mulch everything out and it's mulched on the ground. You can already, we had all kinds of plants come up just from stimulating it with mulching, and actually like running machinery over it and tearing up the ground was really beneficial to stimulating that seed bed. It's kind of like buffalo would have tore up with their hooves a little bit as they're going through. This is hoary puccoon, again, another fire indicator. So after burning this, we had all kinds of awesome effects coming through. Rattlesnake master was coming up. We had golden seal, apparently loves fire. This is what that glade looked like after a few burns, like a really healthy understory in there. And then today, look how much rattlesnake master is through that. I would say that population of rattlesnake master has doubled every single burn that we've done, which is pretty awesome. And this is a space that is full of all of your native milkweeds, all of your mountain mints. This has a pollinator haven underneath the trees. So this is the kind of space that is full of forbs with limited grasses and has some trees. So if we're looking at another sort of community assemblage, I would call this a woodland savanna. So we're looking at probably 30 to 40% canopy cover, and then more forb dominated on the ground. And because of all of the awesome things that flower, that live in here, we found a rare bee last year. This is globally and state rare. It has only been seen 4 times in the last 10 years in 3 states. So it's been seen twice in Virginia. But again, do you think that rare bee would have been hanging out in that 2015 picture where there was absolutely nothing available to it? And it's amazing, like we didn't manage for this bee. We didn't think it would show up. Like we're not trying to get this bee to come here. We're just trying to restore the world to what it should look like. And this is what happens. So I know that a lot of you have milkweed in your gardens. You have mountain mints, you have New Jersey tea, you have all these things that we have in this native environment. And being able to sort of look at the groupings of how those grow together, especially if you're looking at managing for systems like, hey, I have a couple trees, I can build an understory. These are the kinds of assemblages that start turning your wheels on. Just to show you one more restoration project using the same 2 techniques that gets us to a different type of community. This is Dry Creek. So these are some of our most intact barrens in the Cedars Natural Area Preserve. You can see here, again, we're using mulching. You can see with the trees where the Y is and where the Y is, where we've removed everything except those 2 oaks. This is what it looked like everywhere because we didn't burn anything. It was all growing up in undesirables. So we came through and shredded it all out and left just the oaks. And you can see on the pictures here, we're looking at a little barren remnant and a little barren remnant there. That would be mostly grasses. And we have connected them together to build a super barren. And I cannot wait to burn this and see what comes up. But already there's been just mountains of Packer millefolium that have come up from just the mulching, from getting that sunlight to the ground. This is a really awesome space that I would call an open oak savanna or a prairie glade. So we're looking at fewer trees in this picture. You see there's more sunlight getting to the ground, and also grasses are dominating this understory. So it's a different system. And we're really picking that up based on the anchors that are left here. And among a bunch of other things, which we could talk about what's natural and what's supposed to be there for another 3 hours. But one other tool that I wanted to talk about, if you all have never checked it out, is Web Soil Survey. So if you type Web Soil Survey into the interwebs, it will take you to this website, and you can actually look up your soil type for your property or any other properties that you're interested in. And sometimes, like, especially with these rare species, what's supposed to grow there is based on the geology or the soils in the area. And there's a lot of these rare species, especially that like we can't just plant wherever and they'll be okay. Like if you try to grow rattlesnake master in your garden, it's not very happy. It needs to be where it wants to be in the systems where it's at. So if you look at this little 8C that's up here and this little blip in top of the big one, that's right in the middle of that glade that I showed you that we restored. So finding like, wow, weird. There's all these rare plants in this soil type. Like, it makes me want to go check these other circles that have 8C that you have access to. So it's just another tool to put in your tool belt if you want to learn some more things and start thinking about other things that affect your communities, especially if you're looking at a place that's really awesome. Go see what kind of soil it has. Then go see where else that soil is. Like just something else to look at. All right. So finally, we're going to talk about our Rivercane restoration work in Southwest Virginia, which we're incredibly excited about. And I think that this is one of those projects that you can have a lot of impact on. I think that this is something that's very transferable to anybody and any program. And we've been really excited with how much energy we've been getting in this area and how much success we've been having for this plant. So I'll start out with, what is native Rivercane? It is not this. If you see this driving down the road, no. Native Rivercane is a lot scragglier than that. We've got a lot of ideas on how to tell the two apart. I'll make sure to send some of those out so everybody has access to tell apart from Asian bamboo. I think that that is some of the issues with why this plant is so under the radar, is it gets confused with a noxious invasive, and everyone is like, oh my gosh, how prolific is it? You know, can we control it? Not the same plant. It does have a ton of common names, which also gets it confused with other things. So it can be called, you know, cane, switch cane, giant cane, river cane, but it's a native bamboo in North America, which is pretty cool. It looks a lot like this in this picture. So if you all are racking your brains at what's growing next to your creek, hopefully that. There are 3 different species throughout its range in North America. So just to put those out there, Arundinaria tecta switch cane is over towards the coastal side of Virginia. It's over on the eastern shore. Hill cane gets reported here occasionally. Ben and I have been sniffing out those reports. So far, we have not found any. It's usually up a little bit higher in elevation. It's further south of us, but it's another species. The majority of the river cane and everything that we work with is Arundinaria gigantea. And to show you kind of an older map, which is probably a little bit outdated, a lot of the references say that this plant probably had closer to a 22 state range. But just to show you that this was literally everywhere in this entire area. Native river cane currently occupies 2% of its native range. So we have destroyed 98% of it. So when people ask me if it's hard to control, like, well, we already eliminated 98% of it without modern technology, so pretty sure it's okay. Check out some road names in your area. You'll see Caney Creek, Caney Falls, Caney Fork. Cane Tucky is thought to have potentially come from the massive amount of cane that was there in the state. I know, you know, Daniel Boone's walked through Cane Gap. Like, it's everywhere. It was everywhere for hundreds of thousands to millions of acres of this plant. Again, we have a lot of remnant patches now, but the amount that it's been reduced is just saddening. This is a native monoculture, which is crazy. You're like, what? There's one plant that grows and that's it? That's the only thing? That is how it's supposed to be. And I will show you the benefits for why that's supposed to be that way. And again, keeping up with sort of talking about the different community assemblages that we're talking about. If you were to establish some river cane, we're talking about building a cane break. So that is just cane. River cane does not have the ability to, like, we can't mulch it, we can't burn it, and it just comes back. It's not in the seed bank for 50 to 100 years like some of these other rare species that we can restore. Once it's gone, it's gone. So this is something that we need to get back out there. We need to plant it. And that's why we're really trying to do a lot of outreach to share how important this plant is and the work that we're doing to try to bring it back, and many other places are also doing. So why is it gone? Agricultural practices, cows love to eat it. There is literally a fiddle song from the 1800s talking about cattle in the cane. That is how delicious they think it is. So that is a big reason. Also, land use change. Humans love to look at, you know, pretty water things. I get that. So we clear everything off so we can see the river. You don't need to see the river the entire time. That's a big reason that it's no longer here, as well as fire exclusion. So we stopped burning, we put fires out, and everything else has grown up and shaded the river cane out. So even in some of the remnant patches, you'll see that trees that would have been burned up and the river cane would have come right back are now up shading it out. And so it's not able to grow like it used to. So fire exclusion is a big reason for why we don't have these monstrous patches of cane. I do just want to include the many habitats of river cane. It's a very crazy species that can grow in so many different places. So think of a plant that you can see in a dry, loblolly, longleaf pine, grassy, wiregrass understory river cane. Hammocks and picosins, like all the way down south, swampy, wet pine savannas, river cane. You also have it in floodplains, like mesic slopes, bottomland, hardwood. Like, there's so many different systems here, and it grows in all of them over a huge range, over a huge area. So it's really, really versatile. I think it's very applicable to a lot of different sites, a lot of different projects. Here's a picture of it over towards Rose Hill, where it's sort of scraggly, growing under sugar maple on a mountain, like wild. It looks a little bit different than many of you maybe know Frank Kilgore standing in front of a really huge patch of cane. He was always so excited about this plant that is growing right next to the clinch. So it comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes and looks really different in different places, but it is a very cool species. So some of the benefits of Rivercane, reasons we want to bring it back, it is absolutely critical for erosion in stream banks. There is no better time to be talking about this than right now. This is a phenomenal picture from Adam Griffith with the North Carolina Cooperative Extension. Look at this very tiny patch of cane that was on the edge of the river, and look at it left there. And there's nothing else. Like everything else has been blown away on the other side of it, and that Rivercane is totally fine. Can you imagine if there was 1,000 acres of cane there? Like, what about 100,000? How much less sediment would be traveling off these stream banks if that was there to secure it? It's got really thick rhizome mats that it uses to really set into the stream bank, hold in sediment, as well as every time it floods, it actually captures sediment in those rhizome mats. So it's very awesome for stream bank stabilization, and I think it's something we need to think about in long-term flooding resiliency. It also provides shelter for migratory songbirds and other wildlife. So some of the reasonings behind the extinction of the passenger pigeon, Bachman's warbler, and Carolina parakeet have been attributed to the loss of this species, the loss of habitat for those birds. This is a really important community. It also has massive cultural utility and significance. There are many Native American tribes that use this for baskets, blowguns, walls, blankets, like amazing amount of things, torches to explore caves. This has great cultural and historical value, way beyond what I can speak to. It's also very effective at limiting invasive species through shading. So this is some cane that Frank actually planted in Japanese knotweed. You all probably know how noxious Japanese knotweed is. It's very hard to treat even with chemicals. And after 10 years, I know it takes a long time to get started. It's not an instant solution, but it is growing up over top of the Japanese knotweed. It is shading it out, and it is moving out and taking over that Japanese knotweed. So that's amazing to use that as sort of an invasive species control technique, as well as when you have a mature cane stand, you're like, monoculture doesn't have an understory, but it also provides a shaded buffer along waterways where invasive species travel constantly. There's nothing we can do to get them out of the rivers, but if we can plant a shaded buffer that keeps them from establishing because there are not light levels for them to get on the bank and grow up, then it's almost like a preventative maintenance instead of trying to constantly treat invasives. It's also the specific host plant for a number of rare cane feeding moths. So that's one of the biggest reasons our program got really interested in Rivercane. So if we don't have it, these moths go extinct. This is the only plant they can eat. So that's a really big deal, again, to get it started in a lot of places. So we were like, oh my gosh, this plant's amazing. Like, obviously we should plant it everywhere. Like, let's go. And 4 or 5 years ago, I started looking at it, and most of the research said, well, propagation's pretty hard. Seeds don't work really well. The problem with something that used to occupy millions of acres is it would have flowered, pollinated, gone to seed, no problems, right? There's tons of it everywhere. Now that it's in these little patches, it really can't reproduce by seeds because there's not enough of it. So we've got to move it by rhizomes, which is an unnatural method. So it's a bit finicky because we're moving it in a non-native way for that plant. We also looked into buying it. It was like upwards of $50 for a Rivercane plant. So we're like, well, that's not going to work either. Or we needed to use heavy equipment and really hard labor. And again, we don't have any equipment in our program. So we're like, what the heck? We'll just dig up the mode section, plant 10 times what we need. If it doesn't work, like whatever. So we started our 2021 pilot project with like 4 people and a couple of shovels and some great value sandwich bags. It was awesome. We're like, you know what? We'll just all we need is a water hose. Like, it's okay. And we went out there, and I can still remember the first day we saw this little guy popping up out of the sandwich bag. And everybody's texting each other because we all have a couple of these plants on our porch. We're like, oh my gosh, it's working. And it was so awesome to watch these plants go from this, to these guys, to just know that, like, it's possible. Like, we can at least grow them in sandwich bags. I don't know if they'll survive when we plant them out, but it works. And it turns out we initially used the sandwich bags because they were cheap, and very portable. But actually, some of the culms, the stems of the Rivercane grow in all kinds of different directions, and they can actually punch straight through the sandwich bag and just keep on growing. So, you know, you put it in a pot and it'd get like kinked up, and who knows if it would work. And also, we're like, if you use Ziplocs, it's probably too tough and it can't punch through the edge. So the great value is very key here. The bags are also really great at holding water in, so you're almost like artificially flooding these plants. They're very sensitive to drying out, so you can't let them dry out. But this is a great way to sort of deal with that issue. We went out, we were able to start one cane break in 2021. We had a really awesome experience putting that out there. We were really excited about it. We were out there weed eating around it, like helicopter parents, making sure it was gonna make it, like chasing deer off and doing whatever we needed to do. And the next year it grew this far and put up a new culm. And we're like, oh my gosh, it's working. So we were so excited. We're like, yep, we're in, we're doing this. And I just want to stress the grassroots power of this project. You've seen all the major benefits of Rivercane that are out there. Putting this cane break in, we did 2 volunteer work days with probably 45 people that showed up for a couple hours. And we spent $6. And we put this thing out here in the world. Which, usually when you're talking about conservation projects that have, really high impact and they're cheap and fees, you're like, what? So just to give you an update on our 2021 cane break, again, year 1, this was year 2, year 3, it is taller than me. It doesn't need us anymore. It's doing its own thing. It's doing amazing. It's awesome to be a part of a project where you can see it succeed in such a short period of time. I think sometimes, you're planting trees for your grandkids. Like this is one where you get to see results. You get to feel the positive impact that you're having on this species. So the cane train has been gaining cars. As I said, you would all be on the cane train when you left here. 2021, we started 150 plants. We started 1 cane break. In 2022, we upped it to 200 plants. Started 2 to 4 cane breaks. 2023, we really gained a lot of partners. TNC really came out to help us out and really up this effort. We started 300 plants and started thinking about a second watershed. So we'd mostly been working on the Powell at this point, and this really spurred us to think about working on the Clinch as well. And so in 2024, with our volunteer stewardship group, Friends of the Cedars, huge help from the Nature Conservancy, Virginia State Parks gave us a site to get Rivercane off the Clinch. Virginia Highlands Community College and UVA Wise had students at greenhouse space to allow us to really up. Chris, U.S. Forest Service came out to help us out one of our planting days. We started over 1,000 plants in 2024. It was just amazing to see that we can do this much work again in like 4 volunteer days. And I think I upped it to like $30 of sandwich bags. And like, we're really cranking it up there. But we were able to start 7 new cane breaks in 2024. So the bottom line is we need more Rivercane. We need it everywhere. If you have it, it's an awesome way to share, especially within your communities where you're doing seed swaps, to think about rhizome swaps, to think about joining us on our project to learn a little bit more about it. Again, this is a plant that I think is really easy to establish if you're looking for something else in your garden areas. Again, we're talking about the range of this thing being millions of acres. So it's likely that if you live anywhere near any kind of water or a low-lying area, you have Rivercane on your property. So it's something that you can put in your little piece of the earth. If we get it started in as many places as possible, it will start to take care of itself. It will reestablish, it will take care to sort of expand back into the native range that it should be in. So that's awesome. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm on the cane train, how do I get involved? Bam! Volunteer cane harvesting opportunities that are coming up really soon. So if you guys want to jump in right away, we are harvesting cane on the Powell, March 2nd to March 3rd. So that's going to be meeting in Jonesville at the Daniel Boone Soil and Water Conservation District office. Those are the times we're meeting at. Nick has a bunch more information on this with TNC too afterwards. On the Clinch, we're harvesting Tuesday, March 4th at 2 p.m. meeting at the Oxbow Center in St. Paul. And if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, but I'm not available any of these days, we're going to go back out and plant it out into the world. So there's plenty of opportunities coming up that I will make sure to send through to all of you so that you can come out and be a part of this project if you want. And we're working with, all kinds of organizations and private landowners to try to sort of spread the wealth of Rivercane and, just educate people on the importance of this plant, how much we need to bring this system back. So if you want to be involved, as a private landowner or as a volunteer, please reach out to us because we're really excited about this mission, this project, and I just want to say thank you to everybody that's made it possible for us to progress so far over just a couple years with really limited funding and all volunteer hours, greenhouse space, taking care of everything. It really is a grassroots effort in Southwest Virginia, and I love that. So thanks everyone who's a part of that. And with that, I'll stop talking, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I will add that if anyone is having scheduling whiplash, like I am trying to come out of winter, March 2, 3, and 4 is this Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So quick turnaround on the education, straight into action.
You don't get
Don't
time
think
to
about it,
overthink
just come. There's some QR codes on here. You're welcome to take any of these flyers, which go to driving directions and all of that kind of stuff is on here. And I will do a shameless plug for other volunteer things with TNC is that in addition to the cane days that we're doing with DCR, there's a volunteer work day with elk out at the elk restoration area in Buchanan County at the end of this month. That is also on here. But most importantly related to cane are the 3 days coming up, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, for those. And we do have cane stickers if anybody. So we have plenty of these. We're trying to get cane ambassadors all throughout Southwest Virginia, Northeast Tennessee. So get a cane train sticker, put it on your most favorite water bottle, your laptop, your car, your worst enemy's car, whatever. There's other stickers for the clench and Tennessee and stuff, but
It is a cold welcome.
drink the Kool-Aid and enjoy it.
Yes.
You mentioned deer once or twice in your talk, but could you talk a little more about how you got all that regrowth with deer? I assume you have deer up.
Yeah, we do, and they are really awesome at eating our rare plants, but for the most part, like they have not absolutely annihilated our rivercane stands, so that's been pretty awesome. Every once in a while, the neighbor's cow gets through the fence and there is some damage that occurs, but yeah, overall, no, we have not been.
So you mentioned fence. Do you have most of these fenced?
No, like the neighbor has their cows fenced, just it's a poor fence. Yes.
Well, since cows eat it, if property owners manage their gravel differently, would occasional grazing on years ago, would it have sustained it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what the woodland buffalo bison did. This actually has some of, like, if you look at some of the agricultural studies, this has some of the highest foraging yield year round as a plant than anything else. So I really, like, my dream is to plant it in the areas where you have like your NRCS fencing and you can't have your cows in the stream and then you can't get in there to deal with it, and then it grows up in privet, multiple rows, and all this crap that nobody wants to look at. So you should plant rivercane there, and it would grow up, provide habitat. It would be clean stand of rivercane, not full of invasive species. And then if it grew up into your field, the cows would be like, heck yes, we've got rivercane growing up into our fence. But you know, that's like 2030 stuff.
You will for that,
Yeah.
but it's its own thing. You don't mix willow with that or anything else.
Yeah, it's its own thing. Yep.
It takes a lot of moisture.
It does. It needs to be, especially when it's starting out. And again, I know I'm not going to talk a million hours about like our protocols, specifically what we do over time, but you know, especially after you're getting it started to get it through transplant shock, we do recommend that you water at least weekly if you're not receiving measurable precipitation for the first couple months, just because it's very sensitive to desiccation. So if it dries out, it's not like a cucumber, you know, if it's looking really sad and then you water, it comes back. Like if it gets sad, it just dies. Yeah.
What was your survivability rate on all those plants?
As long as we're planting good stock in the sandwich bags, we see 60 to 80% come up. And then I would say when we plant them out in the field, we see another 60 to 80% survive the transplant shock. So you can have, you know, pretty decent success over, you know, like maybe 60% if you're on the higher end of that from start to finish, or, you know, sometimes we're only looking at 30 to 40%. But the good thing is, like, if you get even just a handful of plants established, it will do the job, and it starts to grow exponentially, as you saw in those pictures over time. So even if you have a cluster of 5 plants, it's gonna be able to handle that area in a decade. Yes,
Your contact information?
yes, should I say it? Should we send it out? Should have put it on the slide.
What would be above?
Laura.young@dcr.virginia.gov. And I will send it to Dick so that he can send it out to anybody in case anyone wants to email or talk more about any of the things we talked about. I hope this sort of gets your wheels spinning on just some different things besides, planting natives or looking around the world a little bit differently, or just thinking about things you want to learn more about.
Going back to where you did those burns, when those plants came up, did y'all seed them or those seeds were just already in the ground?
Nope, they're just in the ground. And a lot of times when we burn, seeds that we haven't seen, plants that we haven't seen in 50 years come up after a fire. Like, it's really awesome. I know that it's a very controversial topic in certain groups, but as far as plants go, like in this area, especially, like, fire was here, and it should be in a lot of, honestly, I think it should be in every place, just at different intervals. So some places should burn every 3 years, some places should burn every 100 years.
There's a question online of, does cane benefit from burning?
Yes! There's literature out there that says that they have like burned cane and then watched it grow an inch in 24 hours. And let me tell you, I'm going to make that happen so that I can see that in real life. And I have a patch of cane inside one of my burn units that it's gonna be amazing. I cannot wait. I have never personally burned it, but it is on my wish list. It is going to happen. But it's a grass, so most grass fire cycles are really beneficial.
What season do you burn?
Depends on what I'm trying to do. But most of our burns are in the spring or the fall, and really depending on our objectives. If we're trying to do more like maintenance burns, doing understory recycling things, we're usually burning in the fall. If we're trying to really like take out some vegetation because we've got a lot of invasive species, or we have a stem count that's too high, like spring burns can usually hit stuff a little bit harder and take out some things. But again, I can talk about fire forever. There are so many things in that. It is such a wonderful cross between art and science. Yes.
We have a ditch at the back of our property, and I've been wanting to put something in it that will not be so invasive.
You should put Rivercane in it.
It's not always flowing.
You should put Rivercane in it. So Rivercane really, it doesn't grow in the flood zone. It doesn't like to be flooded for days and days at a time. It usually grows on the levee above the river. So again, it's ready to sort of absorb that water, hold that stream bank in. It's designed to flow so that it can fall over in the stream and wave while the river's raging, whereas trees break, Rivercane just bends, and then it stands right back up like that little cane island.
There's one more question on the timeline for when you harvest, then propagation, and then planting.
Yes, we currently have the most success with harvesting in early spring in Southwest Virginia. Now that's going to be late February, early March, all the way to early April. We typically grow them in the Great Value sandwich bags for 1.5 to 2 months. So that's watering daily, taking care of them, which huge thanks to the universities in our area that usually take on, and some of our native plant nurseries for taking that on. And then after that, keeping them in the sandwich bags for much longer than 2 months starts to result in plant mortality. But then we're really outplanting them in early summer. So either early April, May, early June at the absolute latest, and then watering them for once a week when they're in the field to try to get them through that initial transplant shock.
When you transplant them, do you plant bag and all, or you take a lot of?
No, take the bag off. Yeah, and one of the things that we really love about this method is it doesn't take a lot of energy to dig a rhizome up. It doesn't take a lot of energy to chop it up, pruning shears, or put it in a Ziploc bag. It doesn't take a lot of energy to dig a hole the size of a Ziploc bag. It's like one shovel full of dirt, putting it in there, putting a pin flag in. So it's one of those things that children can do this, anybody with mobility disability can do this, anybody that's at a lower level of physical fitness can do this. Like, it's really an accessible project for anyone, which we're really excited about. Yes.
No, just kind of curiosity, any other specialized species for river outside of this ponds?
For the, sorry, what?
Any specialized species that need the rivercane outside of those ponds?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I know that I just saw North Carolina, we're working with North Carolina on a program after Helene to sort of get some stuff back, and they've mentioned swamp rabbits are in that. I know that there's at least 3 or 4 specific moths that are in it. Again, those 3 birds that I listed that have almost, that are extinct, the passenger pigeon, Bachman's warbler. I think Swanson's warbler is also listed as a specialized species that relies on rivercane. And, most of your migratory songbirds, all kinds of butterflies. Like, it seems to humans like such a weird thing that doesn't offer a lot because it's one species, but to animals, it's just stellar. So, yes.
Have any of the canybirds flower and produce seed?
Not that I have seen in my area. They do that. There are other places. I mean, there are, luckily, I tell people that you're either unaware of cane or you think it's amazing. There is no in between. So all of the other cane nuts that are out there, like, there are definitely people that are planting seeds. There are definitely folks that are running into some of them that flower, but it's so, like, it happens so infrequently, and the seeds have such a low germination rate as, fluffy seeds that float away usually do. But again, if there was millions of acres, it wouldn't be an issue. But yeah, they've tried seeds. It doesn't not seem to be a viable option. Yes.
Is this program spreading to the rest of Virginia, or just we're focusing on Southwest?
We've been focusing mostly on Southwest. The majority of us spreading our efforts has really been about having conversations with other programs and just kind of sharing what we're doing, what's worked, what hasn't worked, so that they can combine it with what they're already doing in their areas. It's been really cool to have like a pilot project of 4 years of just, again, I don't know that we have the best method or the most successful method, but I think we have one of the cheapest, easiest, most feasible things that are really accessible for a lot of programs that don't have a lot of money. And even if it's not the best way, it works. And so don't let perfect get in the way of good. So just being able to sort of share our materials and whatever we're doing for the species to elevate Rivercane so that it can, we've got to get a lot bigger than Southwest Virginia for a plant that's got a 22 state range. So I've just been so thankful for the species that people are interested in the work that we're doing.
And I'll add that this project last year generated enough attention from NPR that WBTF, there's a reporter that came down and did a wonderful piece on that, and then that ended up getting picked up by Morning Edition national outlet last year, which has continued to get the momentum for this project and all the work that Laura's put into it. And so if you just Google NPR cane Laura. I actually did this last week because I was trying to, some of our marketing people are trying to get some information out on social media. So I was like trying to find the NPR piece. I just put NPR cane Laura and it was the top hit. There's a wonderful recording from the audio recording from that interview, as well as just some really nice pieces on that you can find online as well. So you're in the presence of a celebrity. And it works. Someone just in the chat actually just posted that article, so thank you.
Is there a way we could get some seedlings to plant up here?
Yes, I think that working with, again, we work with a lot of programs that were sort of either involving at different stages. And if this is something that Wild Ones is like, yes, we're on the cane train, we want to be a part of this. We can absolutely coordinate. Nick and I usually coordinate every year on what projects we want to put cane towards, and we can look at our numbers and either figure out how we can get you all in this year, or if nothing else, we'll definitely put you on the books for 2026 to make sure that you guys have a spot in this, because again, we just want to spread the cane. We want to get it started everywhere. We want you to tell everybody how awesome it is.
So whether it's Laura's outlined this huge project, and we have little bite-sized pieces that you can plug into. advocacy is certainly a huge one that you don't have to sign up for anything, but for whether it's the planting day or the harvest days, getting connected with Ben here, or if you're out in the Wise area or whatever, or the planting days, any stage of these, the caretaking after that, we need some dedicated people that are willing and committed to even just the watering piece of, making sure, so it's like you can, there's the whole spectrum, but
Yeah.
this volunteer list that I maintain through the Nature Conservancy, I send out these opportunities very regularly. Dick is on my distribution stuff, so however you want to get the information, this list is wonderful. Emailing Laura to get onto the Friends of the Cedars list is also a way to do that, because we know the 3 days, and then we'll just look at weather and capacity as we're looking through the spring season as to getting those future dates out.
Yeah, and there might be sites that are closer or further away from you, things that you wanna be involved in, but I think it would be really awesome if you all found an area and you wanted to sponsor cane break, maybe you wanna sponsor Ben's cane break and the Arboretum. It's really great when we have like master gardener or master naturalist groups that want to take responsibility, kind of adopt a cane break, so you're like, hey, we're gonna put this in. And the master naturalists are gonna check on it once a week, make sure it's okay and water it if it needs water for the first couple of months, because that's, again, we're moving this in a non-natural way. It's a little bit finicky to get started. It needs our help, but after that, it's got our backs.
One more question. I have one from online. It's just resources we can access to help propagate other species.
Oof.
Jason, is there any more to clarify on that?
It totally depends on the species.
Right.
That's probably a Ben Castile question.
Okay.
That's.
Well, thank you, Laura, for the wonderful presentation and taking the time. Anyone online will save the recording and get that out. You wanna close this down? Do you have anything close to?
Only our contribution to Friends of Cedar on behalf of
Thank
Wild
you
Ones,
so
and thanking you
much.
for coming. We really enjoyed it. We're all looking forward to getting on the team training.
Yes, I really appreciate your time. Thank you all. And yeah, feel free. I will put my contact in the chat and send it out with everybody else. Feel free to reach out if you all want to learn more, if you want to be part of any of our projects. Thanks.
I'm trying to figure out how to get.
I don't need it. Oh, gosh, it's in the cloud. It's gonna automatically go.